Thank you, Professor Kate Smith-Miles, for giving me the opportunity and inviting me to give a talk in this Optima seminar. Yeah, I have been attending most of these Optima and AI seminars, unless I have some another meeting. So let me start. So today I am going to talk about BBEVAC, fast location sensitive algorithm for probabilistic behavior-based building evacuation. And this is a joint work with my academic collaborators, whom I'll mention at the end. So before starting, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land. So in this case, where I am sitting at Sydney, the Gadigal people and their elders, past, present, and future. So here is the agenda of today's talk. So I'll start with the description of what is the evacuation planning problem. Then I'll introduce the notion of weak and strong evacuation schedules. Then I will describe our probabilistic behavior-based evacuation framework. I'll briefly discuss about the computational complexity of the evacuation problem. Then I'll touch about the integer linear programs for a weak evacuation schedule and a strong evacuation schedule. Then I will show how we can express behavioral models in terms of the constant of certain integer programs. Then I'll briefly describe about two algorithms, new algorithms that we have developed for solving this evacuation problem. So one is called BBIP and one is called BBEVAC. I will show a lot of experimental study and results on real world and synthetic data sets. And then I'll conclude the talk with some directions for future research. So please feel free to ask any question during the talk, because I always like to focus on the or emphasize on the pedagogical aspects of a talk. And this work has a lot of technical details. So I'll try to explain as many as I can, but probably I'll not be able to convey all of them. So please feel free to also send me email after the talk if you have questions. And I'm sure you'll certainly have a lot of questions. So what is the evacuation planning problem? So, so there have been many buildings that had to be evacuated quickly, both in recent years and in the past. So the prime examples include the World Trade Center and the Pentagon during the 9/11 terrorist attack in 2001. So there are many other buildings also that need to be evacuated during terror attacks. Among them, some of the most important are the Westfield Mall in Kenya and the Taj and Oberoi hotels in Mumbai, in India. So in November 2015, at least two major airports, London and Miami, had to be partly evacuated because of this kind of terrorist attack and threats. So these kind of situations have led to the development of building evacuation models, and they have been studied by both the operations research community as well as the artificial intelligence community. Now, all of these works are based on the assumption that in an emergency, people will do what they are told. Now, in this work, we don't make that assumption because we think that is quite unrealistic. But still, because in mathematics, have to have actions and assumptions, instead we make a different assumption, then all evacuees will act according to a probabilistic behavior model. And I'll explain in detail what we mean by a probabilistic behavior model. So first we need to study some behavior of people during an emergency. And there have been a lot of work in psychology and evacuation in other kind of studies like done by the firefighters and others, how people behave during an emergency. And there are quite a few papers on this which we studied. So many of them have this kind of thing. Suppose you are in a building at location L and a fire or terrorist attack occurs. Now you are told by either say a security guard or some people, the building administrator in a position of authority, to follow a route to an exit X, which you know is further away than the nearest exit NX. Okay, now will you do so? So often the answer is no, you will not do that. So the past work on building evacuation, they kind of wrongly assume that people will do what they are told, and then they will select mechanisms that are globally optimal but individually suboptimal. So look, the evacuation planning algorithms are global algorithms, right? They want to maximize the greater good of the society or the community, right, for everyone. But in reality, people are actually rational and selfish agents. They don't really care about whether others will survive or not. They want to maximize the chance of their own survival. So this is not a realistic assumption that people will always follow what they are told to do. Now, there is also the significance of what is known as the shortest path. So there has been a long history of work in firefighting and emergency response on understanding human behavior during an emergency. Okay. Now, if you have a routes with lot of turns, these are perceived by people to be longer, and also routes with many intersections. And several studies have observed that familiar paths are perceived to be shorter than unfamiliar paths. For example, if you are coming to, reaching a building and then you follow one particular path every day, if given a emergency, you are likely to take that path to get out of the building and not some other complex path which is suggested by an algorithm or a security guard, right? Because you don't probably believe that, you believe your own judgment, in your own judgment, right? So all of this suggests that different individuals make decisions that try to find shortest path according to different definition of shortest path, and not necessarily in terms of actual physical distance. Now, this thing is very important. Shortest not necessarily means that it is actually the distance. It can be the quickest in terms of time. It can be some other definition also. It's based on the distance function that you really define on that, right? So this is not necessarily the shortest based on the length, but it is based on the what parameter or metric you set for the shortest path. Now, we actually, this was kind of one of the project in the last company that I worked for. And so this is actual requirement, and they had very large buildings, okay, and they had to evacuate people. And I've been part of many such evacuation drills. Fortunately, I was never had to face any terrorist attack or fire, but once there was earthquake and we had to do that. And typically these things are quite chaotic, and when they are done manually by security guard or the building administrators. Now, this is a challenging problem to evacuate people from large building in a timely and organized manner, so that you don't want to have chaos and overcrowding on them, so that there is a stampede there. Now, so they told us to design some kind of evacuation planning framework using both the sensors and algorithm. So what it did was we used we tried to locate individuals using their mobile phones, and we also took their behavior into account using an emergency. So what we did was we installed a system called Smart Evac Track on a building with two types of devices. So there is a device called the magnetofence component, which uses electromagnets deployed on the floor to detect entry and exit of smartphones. Now, if a person's mobile phone is in close proximity to the person, he or she can be accurately tracked. And so there is also a component called Zone Y, which uses the receive signal strength indicator, or RSSI in short, to identify the signal strength of the mobile phone. Now, because RSSI technology is very cheap, we believe that it is feasible to deploy. So Smart Evac Track, our system uses RFID methods in order to provide a very cheap solution, and it is required about $10 per door to deploy. Okay. Now, suppose if you have a shopping mall with 500 stores and each with 4 doors on average, that will only cost you $20,000 to install all this technology. So now going forward, going onward, we assume that such a tracking system exists within the building, and we also assume that the location of a person's mobile phone is a proxy for his or her location. Now, this is also very important, because it may be possible that you have put your location, your mobile phone on your desk, and then you have gone out of that thing, and that is not really a proxy for that. But most of the time, people carry their mobile phone with them in their pockets or maybe in their handbags. So we assume this is a realistic assumption. Otherwise, it is actually difficult, because you can only track a person through mobile phone or some other electronic device, right? You cannot track a person just because just as it is, right? So you need some kind of device which he is currently holding. So anyway, so that is the sensor part. In this part, of course, I am not an expert in sensors, but I know enough of the sensors part. But my expertise in algorithms, right, and optimization. So I'll talk about the algorithmic part of that. So this is the sensor part that gives me the support, and that sensor gives us all the data required to perform an effective evacuation planning. So our contribution is the following. So we provide a very general definition of an evacuation behavior model that captures past work as well as many other kind of behaviors. We prove that the problem of deciding whether it is possible to evacuate at least A people by given deadline in the presence of a behavior model is NP-complete. We show that we can express many evacuation behavioral models which are very naturally occurring behavior models that we at least believe natural, and I'll show you, and probably you can also appreciate that, by a set of constants of some integer programs. And then in this, we illustrate this with two concrete behavior models, which we call the nearest exit behavior model and the delayed behavior model. And we designed two new algorithms, BBIP and BBEVAC. And also we conduct very detailed experimental evaluation of both algorithms on building graphs and show that BBEVAC is an order of magnitude faster than BBIP, while it produces similar quality results. So, but I'll show in the experimental data. So BBEVAC actually can evacuate, if BBIP can evacuate 100 people, BB can have at least 85 to 90 people, while its running time is much faster. And this is very important because it's a life and death situation, and you have to act fast. Sorry. So now let me start with the fundamentals. So about probabilistic behavior-based evacuation framework. So here are some notation. So P is the set of people in a building that must be evacuated. T is time starts from 0 and runs to T max, is a set of all time instance. And our evacuation planning starts at time T equal to 0 and it's at T equal to T max. Okay. And also we need the notion of a building graph. So a building graph G is a tuple V, E, E, X, C, D. Now V is the set of vertices and E is the set of edges, the natural things. C and D are called the capacity function and the travel time function. And EX is the set of exits. Okay, and I said it clearly because subset, not subset equal to, but subset because it should be a proper subset. Not all, everything is a exit, then it's a trivial problem, right? So at least it should be a non-trivial, so it should be a proper subset. Now CC and C represent the capacity of the vertex V and edge E, and D is the time required to travel on the edge E. So for example, you are on one endpoint, on one, suppose E is the vertex UV, then from U to V you want to travel, you require the travel time is B, or maybe DUV also you can call it. So we assume that for a vertex, the travel time is 0 because it's kind of a degenerate case, right? DV, that's why you assume DV equal to 0. And CV is equal to cardinality of P. That means for all the vertices, that means that if every exit vertex, every exit can hold all the people. So every exit has enough capacity. So this is a realistic assumption, right? Because typically you take people to the exit node and to a large field or something assembly point where all the people can be converted. So that is also a natural constant, right? And if a person reaches some exit, he is safe, obviously. Okay, so let me illustrate this with a sample building graph. So in this case, the square nodes are the exits. So you can see there are two exits, V4 and V7. So vertex levels denotes the name and capacity of a node. So each node has a capacity, so that many people can be stay there at a period. So think of these as rooms in your buildings, right? And the edges can be thought about the corridors in your building. Okay. And the edge level denotes capacity and travel time for the edge. For example, in this case, you can see that the person P1 is sitting on this vertex V1, and the vertex P1 or that room V1 has capacity 2. And then if he or she has to travel from V1 to V2, then the capacity of that is 2 and the travel time is 1. So at most 2 people per second can travel through that edge, and it will require 1 unit of time to do that. Okay, so this is the sample building graph. Now the next important concept is a state. So a state is basically a mapping which tells us where each person is at some fixed time point. Okay, now at any given time, a person can obviously be either on a vertex, meaning in a room, or an edge in a corridor, right? These are the only two possibilities. Now this figure 1 shows actually state at time t equal to 0 when the evacuation planning starts. Now this state tells us, for example, that this P1, P2, these are located at these vertices respectively. In this case, I have not shown any person on an edge, but they can also do that, right? So for example, this is the thing. Now suppose P1 start moving from V1 at t equal to 0 towards V5, Now the travel time is d equal to 2. So at t equal to 1, he will be on the edge E, and at t equal to 2, he may reach the vertex V5 or stay on edge E. So a person has a choice. He may stay on an edge or stay on a vertex, or he can go to a adjacent edge or an adjacent vertex. Okay. Now there are two important constants on evacuation planning problem. Though I have written three, they are fundamental two constants. So any evacuation planning problem, feasible evacuation planning problem has to satisfy. Now suppose at time t, let OTV and OTE are the number of people occupying the vertex V and AG respectively. Now the capacity constant, there are capacity constant and the exit constant. The vertex capacity constant suggests that the occupancy of a vertex should be less than or equal to its capacity, and similarly the edge capacity constant. And that's what the explanation is, right? At any time, the occupancy of any vertex edge must be at most its capacity. And the second constant is the exit constant, which says that, I mean, this is a little tricky, may look fashionable, but what it really means that every person must reach some exit by the time t max. So I sum it up all the occupancy, and they should be at least, actually it should be at least equal to mod t, but it doesn't hurt if you take it greater than or equal to, because if you have a feasible solution, it will be actually equal to mod t. So these are the two important constants, the capacity constant and the exit constant. Now let's talk about evacuation schedules. So an evacuation schedule is basically a sequence of states which captures positions of the people for each time period. Okay. Now we define two types of evacuation schedules, weak and strong, and it is important to distinguish and understand the differences between these two types of schedules. Now, a strong evacuation schedule is one that can actually be executed. Okay. On the other hand, a weak evacuation schedule may not be executable, as they may not satisfy capacity constraints or exit constraints. So they have at least one of the constraints. Now, even though we wish to generate a strong evacuation schedule that satisfies all the constraints, the behavior of evacuees may lead to infeasible schedules. For example, people, they have been told something to do, but they are running away in different direction. Maybe they are trying to increase their own chance of survival, and that leads to overcrowding on certain rooms or certain corridors, right? So that's not a feasible evacuation schedule. That's a weak evacuation schedule. So this is the reason why weak evacuation schedules are needed. Now let me be more formal, because I like to define things very formally. So suppose STP is a set of all possible states, then a weak evacuation schedule is a mapping from the time t to the set of all possible states satisfying the following constraint. So I wrote this thing in a very precise mathematical form, but I also gave an explanation with the diamond to the what it means in English. So in simple English, it means that the first one says if a person is on the vertex V1 at time t, then at time t plus 1, he either stays on V1 or moves to an edge incident on V1 or an adjacent vertex V2. Okay, so this is very natural, right? That's how it should be. So second property of a weak evacuation schedule says that if a person is on an edge equal to V1, V2 at time t, then at time t plus 1, she either stays on E or moves to one of the endpoints of E. Okay, and again, that is also quite natural, right? The third property says that if a person is on V1 at time t, then he can reach an adjacent vertex V2 only after the travel time D. That is, only if the travel time D allows that, then only he can go to the adjacent vertex. And the fourth property says that if a person reaches an exit at some time point, then she cannot leave the exit. So, I mean, that is kind of, you can say, the vertex which is like you can say ultimate vertex or something, which is like, what was the name for that? Anyway, I forget it. So that is a vertex. Of course, you don't have to exit out, get out of that exit, right? Because you have already reached your goal. Now, let me show you an example of a weak evacuation schedule. So this is a weak evacuation schedule WS1 that we have constructed for that particular thing. And the explanation here is that, so each column, except the leftmost is a state. So for example, this is the person P and these are the states. And the entry PWSP represent the location of person P at time T, and the rows represent the evacuation schedule for person P. For example, P1 at time T equal to 0, he is at V1. At time T equal to 1, he is in the edge V1, V5, and like that. And similarly for P2, she is at V2 at the time t is equal to 0, t equal to, and she is V3 like that. Okay. Now between t equal to and t equal to 2, P3, P5, and P6 are crossing the edge V10, V7. So you can see that, and then this is violating capacity constant. Now, although it is not required by WESS, all evacuations actually reach some exit at time point t equal to 4 with respect to this particular weak evacuation schedule WES1. So in this case, capacity constant is violated by WES1, but the exit constant is satisfied. Now let us take the example of another weak evacuation schedule, this, and then you can see that the capacity constant of the edge V10, V10 is not violated. However, P1 does not reach any exit but stops on V9 after passing through V2. So P1 is at V9 after. So here the time is running from T0 to 4. So at T equal to 4, P1 has not reached any exit. So this has violated exit constraint, but the capacity constant is still satisfied. So the reason I wanted to give the two examples of weak evacuation schedule is that, so some can satisfy capacity constant but violate the exit constant, others can violate capacity constant but satisfy exit constant. So both things are possible, right? Now let us ponder for a moment about weak evacuation schedule. So as a weak evacuation schedule can violate capacity constant or can fail to move all the people to an exit by the time Tmax, they always exist, right? So for example, where no one moves from the initial position, that is clearly trivially a weak evacuation schedule, right? I do nothing. Okay, now suppose we use ESP to denote the evacuation schedule for the percent P, and ESPT is the state of percent P at time T. Now, what we really are after or seek is the strong evacuation schedule, right? But then in reality, some of them will become weak evacuation schedule, and that's how our behavior model comes. But to get into that first, I need to define a strong evacuation schedule. Now, a weak evacuation schedule is said to be strong if it satisfies the following additional constant. So basically, it says that a weak evacuation schedule is strong if it satisfies in addition the vertex capacity constant, the edge capacity constant, and the exit constant. So these are the constant that is satisfied. Then it is a strong evacuation schedule. So here is an example of strong evacuation schedule. So the capacity constant of all vertices and edges are satisfied in table 3 you can see, and every person reaches some exit by the time t equal to 4. So this is a strong evacuation schedule. Now we go to behavior model. So what we mean by a behavior model? So suppose S and W are the set of all, let's call it, because ACS and WS is for strong and weak. And let PW be the set of all probability density functions over W. And this is the definition of a PDF, which I'm sure all of you are aware of. And let W omega be those set of weak evacuation schedule whose probability density function is strictly greater than 0. Right? Now, it doesn't make sense if some probability is assigned to 0, they are not even occurring with any probability. So we consider only non-zero probabilities. Now, a behavior model is a function beta which maps from S to PW, which associates a PDF omega over the set of all weak evacuation schedule with each ACS ES. So you take a ES, a strong evacuation schedule, and then you assign a bunch of weak evacuation schedule with it, and this is a probability density function. So you assign probability to each of these weak evacuation schedule. So for example, so consider this ACS ES and the WS is WS1, WS2. So, and suppose these are S and W. So one of the behavior model could be the beta could map ES to the PDF omega into beta such that omega WS into 0.2 and WS equal to 0.8. That means with given a strong evacuation schedule ES, the weak evacuation schedule WS1 can happen with probability 0.2 and WS2 with 0.8. So this is one of many, infinitely many ways of assigning that, right? Now let us stop for a moment and have some reflections on this behavioral model, what they really mean. So a pair ES to beta ES tells us the probability that if the system tells user to follow ACS ES, they will instead end up following the weak evacuation schedule in beta ES with the corresponding probabilities. So, for example, if the system tells to give that strong evacuation schedule ES, users will follow WS1 with probability 0.2 and WS2 with probability 0.8. Now, um, uh, because evacuation may act out of self-interest and without considering the overall evacuation plan, which involves other evacuees, so their behavior leads to a weak evacuation schedule in general. I mean, because they may, it can be strong if you are lucky, but in general, it will be a weak evacuation schedule. Now, a behavior model tells us what is the expected behavior of the evacuation population will be if they are told to follow a given strong evacuation schedule. So in general, I don't know. I mean, after I give a strong evacuation schedule, they may do random stuff, and then they can that can result to a weak evacuation schedule. Now we define this evacuation framework. So it is basically a triple G S naught beta, where G is a building graph, S naught is the state at time 0, and beta is a behavior model, so which we defined earlier. Now, for example, we can define the evacuation framework EF, where G is the building graph in figure 1, S naught is the initial state, and beta is the behavior model we just defined, right? I mean, that's sample behavior model, this points 2 and 0.8. Now we'll show how our formal definition of a behavior model allows us to express specific behavior model, concrete behavior models. I'm not just talking about in theory or abstract, I'm talking about specific concrete behavior models. So we'll show, for example, two very naturally occurring behavior models which people follow. The nearest exit, if it is wrong, I think it should be exit behavior model, not exist. Nearest exit behavior model, where the evacuees try to go to the nearest exit, and the delayed behavior model in which evacuees follows the suggested evacuation route with a delay can both be expressed within our framework. Okay, now to do further proceeding, we need to define some. Now we need some to have some quantitative aspects of this thing, right? Now, given a strong or weak evacuation schedule and deadline D, the number of people evacuated by the deadline D is this NESD, which is basically the number of people that has reached some exit by that time, deadline D. But we are talking about probabilities and randomization here, right? So, I mean, we cannot talk about the deterministic quantity. So instead, we should talk about mathematical expectations. So, given an SES ES, and for behavior model, we should talk about if you have a behavior model in addition. So we talk about the expected number of people evacuated by D, which is basically expectation of NESD, and which is given by this quantity. Okay, so here instead of that NES, we are talking about also the probability of that, and then we average it out. So that's the expectation of that. Now we define the following problems. So the evacuation problem that we define is that given an evacuation framework and a deadline D, find a strong evacuation schedule that maximizes the expected number of people evacuated by D, which is the expectation of NESD. So that is the optimization version of the problem. And then we also define a decision version of the problem. So given an evacuation framework and a deadline D and number of person K less than or equal to mod P, decide if there exists an SES such that expectation of NES is greater than or equal to K. Right? So this is the decision version of the optimization problem. Now, it's what are the computation complexity of this evacuation problem, right? So we first prove that DEP is NP complete, and we do that by showing a reduction to DEP from the NP complete problem, simple undirected two-commodity integral flow, which was proven by Even, Itai, and Shamir, I think way back in 1976. But we give a very nice reduction. Probably the proof runs for about 2 pages, but we actually prove that. Of course, I cannot show the proof here, but if you are interested, I can tell you later. Now, DEP is in, of course, NP, and that's why it is NP complete, whereas EP is not in NP, but it is NP hard because it is the corresponding optimization version. And not only EP is NP hard, EP is NP hard even if the actual instance is restricted to very specific things. So we show that even if all the capacities are demands, capacity and travel times are 1, and all people are located on at most 2 vertices of G, and beta ES is a PDF over only a single WBS, even in this very restricted instance, EP is NP hard. So this actually follows from the reduction of this problem when we do that. The the instances that we construct. So we can show even on this very restricted instance, if P is NP hard. Okay, so if you have any question, you can ask me. Now we go on to construct the integer linear programs for this WS and ACS. Now it has a lot of constant, and frankly, I really don't have time to explain that. But if you are interested, I can, because in our paper it has all the details. So basically, I want to tell you there are two components in this integer program. 1 to 8 is the constant corresponding to what we call LPW G, which is basically the constants for the weak evacuation schedule part, and 9 to 11, these are the part additional constant for the strong evacuation schedule part, the LP for the strong evacuation schedule that we already talked, right? So evacuation schedule is strong. If it is weak, plus it has this additional constant, the exit constant and the capacity constant, right? That is exactly captured very naturally by this integer program. So LPW, and then you have this additional LPSG that makes the total strong evacuation. So this is the additional part, LPSG. So to really explain that thing, we need what is known as a gadget or a device like this. So this we do all the times in theoretical computer science. We devise gadgets or devices, and then we try to prove that. So, but unfortunately, I don't have time to go through this gadget and explain, because we can explain each of these constant using this gadget. But the thing is, the important thing is that LPWG, as I said, is the set of constant 1 to 8, and LPSG is the additional part for strong. And if you take the union of them, they capture the ACS part of that. The LPWG is WSS, and LPWG union LPSG, that is the strong evacuation schedule path. And figure 2 is the key for explaining the constant in table 4, which unfortunately I don't have time to go through. Now, the important thing is that we actually show very formal, strong correspondence between WSG and LPWG, and similarly for ACS and LP S star G. So we show that if there is, for every WS, there corresponds to a solution sigma of LPWG such that sigma XPT is equal to the number of people on vertex B at time t according to WST, and sigma, this one is equal to the number of people on AG at time t according to WST, and vice versa. So there is a correspondence of equivalence between the weak evacuation schedule and the constant of this linear program. And similar things we do for correspondence between SCS and LPS star G. Okay, again, so I'm not going through that. Now the thing is that still now, I mean, the ILPs that we wrote for finding weak or strong evacuation schedule, then do not take behavior models into account. Now to solve this, we also use constant to express behavior models. Now recall that a behavior model beta maps an ACS onto a set of say WS1 to WSK with certain probabilities alpha 1 to alpha k. Now, how do we do this? Associate this set of constant f beta with the ILP. So to understand this, it's a little subtle, but it can be better understood if you look at this diagram. Okay, so here is this strong evacuation schedules S1 to SPS M say, and then there are these K weak evacuation schedule LPW1 to LPW2. The key is this interlinking function F1, F2, Fk. Okay, now what we do is basically we make K copies of this LPWG. In this diagram, you can see this LPW1 to LPWK. Now, by proposition 1 and 2, we know that there is a solution sigma I of LPWG that corresponds to equivalent WSI. And then we use one copy of LPS star G, which is at the top. Now, by proposition 3 and 4, we know that there is a solution sigma of LP star G that corresponds to equivalent SCSES. Now, the solution sigma I for LPWG can be expressed as a function of the solution sigma in LPS star G. And if we look at, say, yi is a vector of the variables, then sigma yi is equal to fi ws, which is the function. So that is the interlinking function that is the key to this reduction, you can say, or explaining that thing. So basically, what this fi, the function fi does, it maps the solution of LPS star g corresponding to ES to a solution of LPWIG corresponding to WESI. And in a concrete instance, you have to actually find out what these functions are. But that is the general idea. And also we have this syntax for this behavior model. So given a graph G and a vector of variables and a vector of this, then f beta can be designed as a set of constants having the following form. Okay, so you have you can express this f beta as a set of constants. So we have to write this constant to capture the behavior model, and note that it is not always the case that these will be linear constants. So there can be nonlinear constants also for some behavior model to capture this. So in general, this need not be integer linear program, I mean linear program. It can be a quadratic program, for example. So in general, it is not true that it will be a linear program. Now, so if we have this machinery in place, then we can show that if there is a behavior model, then this set f beta that we constructed that encodes this behavior model beta if the following conditions hold. So for each variable x in x, so this theta x is equal to sigma x, where sigma is a solution for LPS star g corresponding to ES. So basically, what does it say, this proposition, and of course, I don't have time to prove this, every set f beta of some sense is represents the behavior model beta. Now, because of the generality of the definition of the behavior model, some behavior model may not be representable as constant. However, in our work, we found that constants are still very expressive, and they can be used to express many naturally occurring behaviors. And we'll illustrate with two. So here are the two examples of a behavior model. So the first one, we call it a delayed behavior model. I presented this first because this is simpler, and also in terms of when we model this thing, it comes out to be simpler in terms of the integer programs that we write. That's why I presented this first, though the other one is more natural. So suppose the system communicates an ACS ES to all people in a building during an evacuation effort. Okay, so basically these evacuation schedule, like you say the person P1, you take this path and go to this exit 1. The second P2, you take this path and go to exit 5, maybe, and like that, right? And these are in our system, it will be sent as in a mobile phone, right, as an app. So the mobile phone will both be used for determining the location as well as to sending the evacuation path. Actually, you have to tell the where each person will go, which exit, and exactly the which path should follow. Sorry. So basically, the delayed behavior model, in essence, says that everyone follows this weak evacuation schedule WSI with a delay of tau I with probability alpha I. Okay, so given a weak evacuation schedule, if you follow this with a delay of tau I, say maybe 5 seconds, and with probability maybe 0.1. And then that keeps a PDF over this weak evacuation schedule. Now, one of the problems that we face in the real world is estimating this probabilities alpha is a challenge. Now, typically what it does is that, and in our companies also these are done, so most companies and organizations have periodic evacuation drills. So if you can do it, maybe if it is monthly, that would be very good. Maybe you can do it 12 times in a year. So these statistics can be obtained from such drills. In the next one, which is even more natural, which we are after, the nearest exit behavior model, it says that people will follow the path suggested by ES, the strong evacuation schedule with probability alpha, and they will follow the shortest path from the vertices on which they are present to the nearest exit with probability 1 minus alpha. So if suppose algorithm has given me a route, I am person P, algorithm has given me an exit EX1, so I go there with probability alpha, and the nearest exit maybe EX2, I go with probability 1 minus alpha. So that's it. So basically the people will follow the schedule with probability alpha and go to nearest exit probability 1 minus alpha. Now, in general, it could be even more sophisticated, like it can be for each person, it could be alpha p and 1 minus alpha p, but that is even more difficult to analyze. So we settle with the more simpler thing. So all the alpha p's are actually same and they are equal to alpha for every person. Now, even determining this alpha is very challenging, but it can be obtained if we can do a series of regular evacuation drills, and then you can count how many people go to the nearest exit and how many actually follows the instructions given to them by the algorithm and went to the exit they were told to go. Another way to do that is that design some kind of a game, maybe somewhere in Amazon Mechanical Turk or something, or maybe you design a game and then you say that play this evacuation game, and suppose the system gives you, algorithm gives you something, and then you see how many times the person actually follows in the game the nearest exit versus the actual exit that is given to them. So that is also another way of designing, estimating this alpha. Now, again, so of course I did not have the time because I could have explained that I don't have the time to write those exact interior program and illustrate it with examples, but all these things are in the paper. Um, so now I start with the algorithms for this evacuation planning problem. So basically, we designed two different algorithms. The first algorithm, VBIP, solves the problem using interior programming, and it's an optimal algorithm. If it can solve, it gets optimal solution. The second algorithm, BBEFAC, it incrementally solves the evaluation problem for subgraphs of the building graph, which is called exit graph, and by taking the behavior model into account. So you can think of this like a divide and conquer kind of approach. So you solve this, you take a graph, and you divide into subgraphs, you individually solve the same, and then you combine them in an intelligent way to get the final evaluation statement. Now, yeah, that's what BBVA combines the solution for exit graphs. Now, because BBIP solves the NP-complete evaluation problem exactly, it is unlike to be efficient, and that's exactly what we found in our experiments, which I'll show to you shortly. So it cannot run, it really cannot scale for a large graph. So BBIP is much more efficient, and it can handle much larger graph, but it gives an approximate solution. So you have this trade-off between the optimality and the time complexity of that, right? I mean, how much time you are able to think. But as I said before, in evaluation, it's a life and death situation. So running time is also very important, right? So in addition to, of course, you want to evacuate maximum number of people, but you want to do it in a fast and efficient manner. So the BBIP algorithm, basically what it does is that it tries to solve this interior program that I have written. It's a compact formulation, and basically BBIP solves this Abas IP and taking the behavior model into account. So note that the behavior model is encoded in this F beta at the end. So that these are also set of constant, right? So in addition to those constant, you have a set of constant. So that is BBIP. Now the BBIP algorithm is quite complex. I mean, I just gave a screenshot of that. I mean, and it needs a lot of detailed explanation, but if I had to explain this thing and be a detailed work, or it will take 1 hour just to understand the BBIP. But it does the job, and it produces some evacuation schedules. So I don't really have the time to go through that. But instead, what I'll do, I'll go to the implementation and experiments of this. So this is the implementation details of that. So operating system, we use Ubuntu Linux. Importantly, we use the C++ network libraries, iGraphs and Lemon to implement this algorithm. And for solving the linear programming instances or interior programming, we use the GNU linear programming kit. Now, okay, so we use two types of building up. So as you see, for real world, getting these data are very tricky because building administrators are very reluctant to get the real data set, but we could manage to get some building data set. So one of the data set we got was on called EcoSpace building, in which I used to work, and after pursuing them, we could get the data, because you not only need the building floor plan, but also you need the occupancy data and every other thing, capacity, everything, right? So it's quite challenging, but we managed to get that. So this building approximately has 3,000 employees, and this was modeled as a graph with 133 nodes, 200 edges, and 2 exits. So that was exactly the floor plan of that. And the exits were at the ground floor. This was, I think, an 8-floor building. So out of 8 floors, at the ground floor, there are 2 exits. For each edge, the distance and capacities were estimated manually by using some kind of a mobile phone and by actually walking, because these things cannot be, there is no because they are dynamic things, right? These are not in the building plan. So we have to estimate this manually. So this we call the ecospace data set. So, and in addition, we also generated a large number of synthetic graphs because BL graphs are difficult to find. So, but we did this experiment on a large number of synthetic graphs. So, we actually generated 840 synthetically generated graphs using the NetGen software from Technical University of Vienna. Okay. Now, we simultaneously varies the number of nodes, edges, exits, and people present in the building. So number of nodes are varies from 110 to 200 in steps of 10. Similarly, the number of edges are varied actually as a function of the number of nodes by 1.3 times, 35 to 1.7 times. And similarly, the population and the deadline was also varied, right? So for a given number, we generated 84 graphs, and similarly for population size and a deadline, and we averaged all the runtime result and also the quality, right? So this led to about 3360 evacuation planning problems, and for each of these problems, we we analyze both the DBM as well as NEBM. So we did a very detailed and comprehensive experimental study of this algorithm. Okay, so here are some results that we got. So if you look at the runtime versus the number of nodes, so note that for the real building, that the graph is this building graph, because that's the given graph, right? Based on the floor plan and everything, I cannot vary the number of nodes or the number of edges or anything, right? So only the deadlines can be varied. But as for the synthetically generated graph, I have a lot of leeway or flexibility. I can vary their number of nodes and edges, etc. So when we do study this as a number runtime in seconds versus number of nodes, you can see that BBEVAC actually takes a lot of time. These are in seconds. So it starts with 4,000 seconds and then go up to 6,000 seconds and more. Whereas BBIP, rather, so that is in red. BBIP is in red. BBEVAC, on the other hand, so it starts with very small things and then it goes up to maybe 1,000 seconds or so, which is still very large, but it is really much lower than compared to BBIP. And the left one is DBM, the right one is NEBM. Now, so we did the same thing for the runtime versus number of evacuees, and we found that again the BBIP takes the red one takes a long time like 6,000 nodes, and for the NEBM it takes 6,000 seconds and 7,000 seconds. 6,000 second is like it is like 60, so that is 100 minutes, right? And this is about 120 minutes, which is like more than 1 hour, 2 hours, right? And whereas BBEVAC takes still maybe 500 seconds or so in DBM, and NEBM, of course, it takes longer, maybe about 2,000 to 3,000, which is quite high. As a function of deadline, again, BBIP took very high thing, and BBEVAC did much better, but again for NEBM it took a longer time. And for the real building, which is the ecospace, here we can vary only deadline, as I said, because the topology is fixed. So you can see that up to 270, BBEVAC can actually run, but it was going quite high. And then after that, it couldn't even finish. BBIP. BBEVAC, on the other hand, went up to the deadline 420, and it could handle it very nicely. And similarly for these two, for both DBM and NEBM, only the difference is the threshold is different. In this case, it is 270, where BBIP could not keep up the deadline, whereas for NEBM, it was like 210, after which BBIP could not keep up. So this is runtime. Now, what about the quality of the evacuation schedule, right? So the number of people evacuated. So there are two parameters, right? In the number of people evacuated, obviously BBIP is supposed to be the optimum. So it could evacuate many more people. So for example, at 110 nodes, you are seeing the BBEVAC is evacuating 1800, whereas this is evacuating maybe 2050, and things like that. You can see that BBEVAC, of course, BBIP, it's an upper bound, right? It's an optimum, so it's an upper bound of BBIP. So BBEVAC is not doing very badly. Okay, and both for DBM and NEBM, I don't know. Similar things you see for the, if you vary it with the number of evacuees, you find that actually here BBVAC is doing very well and it is staying very close to BBIP, which is an optimum, but it is much faster, right? And as a function of the number, the deadline, you see that BBIP is still doing better, but BBVAC is not doing badly. It is evacuating over 1750 at deadline 225, whereas BBIP is doing about 2000, which is like not too bad. 1750 is like 85%, or maybe a little more. And similarly for any BM also. And finally, that the real building for the EcoSpace building, you can see that you already saw, right, in the running time that BBIP cannot even go beyond 270 for DBM and 210 for any BM. But at the point where it could at least finish, I mean, BBIP could go much further, but still BBVAC was doing quite good compared to BBIP. So let's take an overview of the stock of this situation and have the summary of this result. So here are some salient points that we found during this very comprehensive set of experiments. So for synthetic drugs, on average, BBVAC takes only about 10 to 20% of the time taken by BBIP for both BBM and NEBM. So that's for synthetic drugs. And this is 10 to 20% is actually it is an order of magnitude of 5 to 10 times faster than BBIP. Okay. Now BBIP takes 60 to 120 minutes, which is about 1 to 2 hours. For EcoSpace, when the deadline exceeds 270 and for DBM and 210 for NEBM respectively, BBIP is unable to complete within 30 minutes, and that's when we give up. I mean, we stop the experiment. When BBIP completes, it takes about 10 to 30 minutes in all of these cases. Now, BBVAC always completes at least the instance we ran, even as the deadline increases. And for synthetic drugs, BBVAC evacuates about 80 to 90% of the people evacuated by BBIP for both DBM and NBM. And for EcoSpace, which is the real building drug, BBVAC evacuates at least 85% of the people evacuated by BBAP, again for both DBM and NEBM. Now, the most important part here is that in a real building evacuation, waiting for 30 minutes to generate an optimum plan is not an option. So you would rather run an algorithm which generates the evacuation plan fast, and then might rather evacuate as many people as possible, even if it is not optimum, than wait for 1 hour or 2 hours and then start the evacuation, by which time almost all the people has died, right? So you don't want to do that. You want to generate a fast algorithm, which even if it is not optimal, it can go to up to maybe 85% of the optimal, right? So that way BBVAC is really a practical algorithm also. It's not just a theoretical algorithm. So to conclude this talk, so here are some key takeaway or understanding about from our work that we realized. So people do not necessarily behave as instructed during an evacuation, and there have been a lot of study in the last maybe 50 to 60 years, and a lot of literature on that. So we have developed an abstract mathematical definition of a behavior model in an evacuation situation, and I studied a lot of paper like previous work. I have not found anything which does it the way in a formal way, the way we are trying to do. But there are some other kind of ways also they are doing that, but not in this kind of a very precise and formal way. And that's what we wanted to do. So we have shown that by maximizing the number of people evacuated by a deadline in the presence of such behavior models in NP-hard, and we also showed that in many cases, though not always all, so we have found some other behavior models which cannot be expressed in our framework. So we are not saying this is a universal framework, but many of the naturally occurring cases, the abstract mathematical definition of a behavior model can be expressed by a set of constraints. We presented two behavior models, which is concrete, and these are very natural, the delayed behavior model and the nearest fixed behavior model. We showed how both these behavior models can be expressed by some constant of an integer program. We presented the two algorithms, BBIP and BBVAC, to maximize the number of people that can be evacuated within a given deadline. And we conducted a very detailed and comprehensive set of experiments and showed that BBVAC performs much better than BBIP in real life evacuation. So here are some future research direction, and there can be many more. So first of all, what we found from this work, and we are doing it for quite some time. So learning real-world behavior models during building evacuation poses a significant challenge. So the problem is that so there is a lot of lack of data, and getting behavioral data is very tough. So most in building administrators that we talked about, so we talked with all the authors that four authors that we had. We talked about respective building administrator. So they are not willing to conduct evacuation drills in a building for more than a few times per year. So they don't want, because we want to build a mathematical model for that. They don't want to really do a building evacuation. So that's the challenge, right? So maybe designing a game or something on Amazon Mechanical Turk maybe one way, but still those will be kind of approximation. That will not be the real thing, right? For real thing, you still have to do some kind of evacuation drill, which is difficult to do. The next question is, how can we set up a framework to test hypothesis about real world human behavior during building evacuation? And that is really quite challenging. Then what are the other concrete behavior models in addition to these two? And we have had some others also we have identified, but in addition, what are the concrete other behavior models that can be expressed in our framework? And also, again, I'm not saying this is the best and the most perfect or universal behavior model. But is there any other general behavior model which can accurately model realistic behavior of people during an emergency, which is maybe different? Maybe it's completely different from ours, right? And lastly, can we design an algorithm better than BBEVAC in terms of both running time and quality of evacuation? So BBEVAC is pretty good, but I think we can still do better. I mean, in terms of both running time, because sometimes it takes tenses which may be still high, and also the quality maybe is 85 to 90. Can we make it 95 or more? So there is still lot of work to be done here. So I would like to acknowledge my academic collaborators for their help and support, without which I could not have done this thing. So this is a joint effort. So Ms. Shubhra Mojumdar from Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata, Professor Francesco Parisi from University of Calabria, Italy, Professor V.S. Subramaniam for Northwestern University, US. So this is really a global collaboration between Australia, India, Italy, and United States. And I actually visited Francesco and stayed there for some time while doing this work. So it has been a pleasant experience going to southern Italy. Um, and this is, I like really the great mathematician Paul Edos. And this is Paul Edos with the book. Uncle Paul, as he used to be called, he used to believe that God has as a book, the book where he keeps all the most beautiful mathematical proofs, and so that's why here is the, and there is also actually there is something called the book where proofs from the book where I mean they think that is a realistic approximation to the book that the God holds, which we really don't know, right? So that's it. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.